Monster Nation hit the road to Maryland for a special screening of A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. Some of the stars from the respective films were also there. Lisa Wilcox, who played Alice from Part 4, Mark Patton, who played Jesse from Part 2, as well as JoAnn Willette from Just the Ten of Us, as well as Part 2, were there to answer some questions. Here at Monster Nation, we'd like to present some of the extended interviews that they offered to spectators who had some questions that they wanted to get answered. Feel free to enjoy, as well as subscribe. Thanks again.
And I really didn't want to do it, to be honest with you, because I was, and not that they asked me in the end, but I had just done a film that was at the Cannes Film Festival. So I was like, I wanted to sort of ride that direction, and of course nobody knew anything about Nightmare on Elm Street. Although I love Wes Craven. I mean, like growing up, like some of those movies are like my go-to, scare me to death kind of drive-in movies. So, and I remember sitting with, I had the same experience with Heather and Kim both, because I was sitting on a trailer on a lot with Heather, and Heather was trying to decide whether to go to school or do the movie. Like, because she was going off to school. Yeah, she was going to Stanford. And Kim was the same thing. And she was like, I don't really know if I should delay my education to do this. And I was like, you delay your education to do this. I mean, like, just do it. And then, like, see what happens. Because you don't get offered to leave a movie very often, right? So then time went by, and Nightmare on Elm Street came out, and I went back to New York. And then I was the same as you. Like, I knew Annette, right? And Annette had decided a long time ago that I wasn't
Nightmare on Elm Street material?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Annette had decided that, really?
Yeah, she threw me in the trash, too.
Wow.
But literally, they pulled my picture out of the trash, and the person that pulled my picture out of the trash was Michael Murphy, and he was one of our line producers. And he pulled it, and he was like, what is this picture doing in the trash? And then he saw Robert Altman on the back of it. He's a big Robert Altman fan, right? And I just come back with 5 and I'm Jimmy Dean. So he was like, why is this in the trash? And she goes, oh, he's not right. And the director happened to be in the room, who was Jack Shoulder, and he was like, hello, this is who we've been looking for. And so Hope, who played my mother, Hope Lange played my mom. And Hope liked to have a cocktail, or two, or three. And like it depended on how long it took to get her hair, And she had really fine hair, so sometimes to puff it up would take like 3 martinis, right? So one day she took me out to lunch, and she said, I want to take you out to lunch. Let's go to lunch. And I had a gin and tonic, and she had like 5 martinis. And like now, Hope Lange, you have to understand, like, was an Academy Award-winning actress. I mean, she was, like, a big deal when we took up her guy. And the costume designer went, they're drunk. They're both drunk. And she just kept going, they're drunk, they're drunk, they're drunk. And I wasn't drunk, but, to tell you the truth, Hope wasn't drunk either. She was just maintaining at that point. And drunk was after we quit. So, but she kept bitching and bitching and bitching and bitching and bitching. And the director finally told her just to shut up and get off the set. And I got to shoot last, but that meant that I have more points in that film than anybody else, and you get your residuals on points. So I've made almost $1 million on those points, right? And I said I want all of my wardrobe, everything. I want my underwear. I want everything that I can. And because what the wardrobe person would do would sell that stuff to get their tip fee money back, right? So she had sold off half my stuff, and like I just punished her. I was like, fuck the bitch. Okay, so go get my stuff. And I had a list, and I had like 9 pairs of underwear, and I wanted the underwear, and she hated me. She just hated me. But I hated her because she had put Carrie, Sydney Walsh. Well, she was flatter that girl in the grocery store the other night. She had no, and she was the whole thing, and she put her in that little bikini, and it was like, I wanted to kill her. I thought, give her some padding, give her something, because she's going to lose her top, and she was totally embarrassed, and she's sitting there in a little tube top thing, and she has no breasts, and I just thought, okay, I'll punish her. So she had to go and buy back everything that she was told, and I sat there, and I was like, oh, where are my socks?
Phenomenally
incredibly successful at the box office. It did like $50 million. And
At the time.
at the
Right,
time,
which is like,
it was unheard of. Because it was a film where you actually could be a date movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't so violent, and there's fun jokes in it. You know, it has. So it became really. And then they asked me to do 5.
Were you like really excited?
Yes.
Did you negotiate?
Yes.
Yes.
Had
a girl.
Negotiated. But it was such a different script.
Yeah.
Totally different feel. And that one only, Nightmare 5 did $15 million.
Right. Isn't that Rachel that did 5?
Yeah.
Rachel did 5. Yeah, because Rachel was there from the beginning. Rachel House. I mean, like that, she was like
right.
from the get-go.
Yes, I remember Rachel very well. And I remember Rachel saying she hated white tennis shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always had this thing about white tennis shoes ever since then.
Because I have to say,
about me buying them. I'm like, there's really nothing wrong with it. I do own
you
white.
guys.
Lisa, this goes to you. I love that scene when your hair kind of blows in the church and you're just about to kick his ass and everything.
Yes.
So I was wondering, like, could you maybe recreate that, like, sigh yell?
Well, it was funny. I was watching it with you all, and I heard his version, you know, how he said sigh, and he would go, sigh, right? But mine was like this, sigh, something like that, you know? Not good. Want to retake it?
Maybe you can do a one-shot podcast.
Yeah.
I thought that sounded pretty good.
No judgment. It was cool.
Kind of like a drawn-out.
You were pissed. You were pissed off.
Yeah.
It was coming from a different
Whereas
place.
his was sight.
Either way, it was a very fun performance. I mean, that whole dream foo thing was really cool.
Yeah.
And,
I have actually pictures. I have some cut out from that look of when the door he opens the door and
awesome.
The wind comes in. Yeah.
Do you remember how to do any of that, like fighting anymore? Like, do you remember any of those moves?
No.
No.
Did you know how to use them?
But I remember. Well, they sent me and Andras, like my brother, to a day of karate school.
A day?
A day.
A day.
It
actually wasn't even a day. It was an hour. and to learn how to, somewhat manipulate them, And man, if that thing hits your head, it hurts. I'm telling you. It hurts.
My brother did.
Oh, I need to learn this technique a little better. But yeah, we had just very little time to take, but they at least gave us a little bit of training.
And you had a body double do that to work for you?
Did I have a body double, you guys?
Jeez, what gave it away?
It was a girl in a very bad wig.
And it was almost green.
It was like green. Taupe. Like a
taupey green.
Dirty
green
color. Well, and of course it shows, it's pretty obvious. But I did do some. Absolutely. I did.
Great.
And so I had a question for her, which I think is really interesting. It's like,
I hope I have an answer, Mom.
you do. I know. So, like, when you got the part, right? Like when you were cast as Alice, did you know what was about to happen to you? I mean, did you know about Nightmare on Elm Street? Did you know you were about to become like a star forever?
Yeah, really. Only in my own mind.
It came true.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I did know Nightmare on Elm Street. I had seen the first one, and I'd seen the second one when they had come out, and I was a big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, and actually all the horror films, vampire, all that stuff, ever since I could read. The first novel I read was Bram Stoker's Dracula, I'd read under the covers, we had, I grew up in Missouri, very cold winters, and we had electric blankets. I would use the little yellow light on the electric blanket thing to read under the covers at night till like 4 in the morning on a school night. I was just like obsessed. Ghost stories and all that kind of thing. So when I got an opportunity to audition for Nightmare 4, which was a long time coming, because if I've got to start bringing a headshot of what I looked like back then. Total cheerleader, the bright blonde hair, and I got this little tennis outfit on, and this is my headshot. So when my manager had submitted me, like trash, whatever, I went into the forget it pile. Well, after a month, and this story comes from the casting director, Annette Benson.
Yeah. Who lives in Las Vegas now, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I talked to her like 2 days ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I had to look around my family there. Anyway, so yeah, after a month they couldn't find Alice. They seriously went through 700 exorcists, and so they started to go through their throwaway pile, which I was in, and I got my opportunity, and of course I went in with very dirty hair and no makeup and wore my worst color, which is pale yellow, and auditioned, and I had one callback, and Tuesday night was in the room for the callback, maybe for both, and of course Rennie Harlan, she was already cast.
Yeah,
she was the first
there.
one cast. Yeah, to play Kristen, and yeah, so I had a callback on a Friday, and I got married on a Sunday. That Sunday, I was planning a big wedding with 200 people, and we were in Hawaii on my honeymoon, and got the news that I had landed the role of Alice, and I needed to.
Here's my girl, right here, the bitch.
I did.
When I was
just.
She was my bitch.
Yeah, my bitch.
Tell us her story about like
Okay,
being on the bus.
this is how I got cast in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. I had auditioned for Nightmare 1, right? But nobody can scream like Heather Lange can. And I was telling these guys, I was on a TV show called Just the Ten of Us with her, and she played my big sister. And for fun, I used to have her scream on downtime, just as like, could you just do it for me? And she'd let out the blood-curdling scream, for fun. And then I ended up. That was years later. We had both been in the movie. But for Nightmare 2, I was in a play in Los Angeles, this little tiny play, with Lynn Shay, Robert Shay's sister. Right?
Sure.
It was called Ghost, and I played a dead teenage girl. And we just it was a dark theater where we would run around scaring people in the audience and grab them and stuff, and then fire with flashlights on the face. So Robert Englund came with Robert Shay to see Lynn. And then after the show, she introduced me, and Robert Englund said, hey, what are you doing next week? And he said to Robert J., oh, she would be really a great cheerleader. And that's all I knew about this thing. I said, yeah. And he said, do you have an agent? And I said, yes. So then I got the part. I didn't read the script. Didn't know anything about it. I got a phone call saying, show up off the freeway and a white van will pick you up. Because you know the big budgets of the low budget movies, right? So I said that sounded fine. So I pulled off the freeway and I got climbed into the van, and that's when the nightmare began. And we drove to Fontana, right?
Yeah, Fontana.
And Allison was there, and I met Allison, and I met you briefly, but you were so sweet and shy and nice, and and they were totally because we had
they had lines.
We had lines.
Coffee.
Yeah, and he was the guy in the back, and so there was no script. They just said, just make fun of him.
Right.
So we did, and then I remember when we were driving through the thing, right? And at one point I smashed my nose onto the seat in front of me, so I was really screaming.
Okay, so we shot the interiors of the bus on the Desi Luce soundstage, which was where they shot I Love Lucy, right? And they had a bus on a jack, and so the bus was like a lowrider. So it was really like pounding up and down, it was all lit from the outside. And that was like days later or something. But, and that's how they shot the interior of the bus. And it was pretty nauseating, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, they made me look like Anthony Perkins. That was the deal, that they made me look like Anthony Perkins. But I was so pretty that it was hard to make me look ugly at that time. So they kept going like, you got to do something to him. I'm like, I just got somebody sent me a picture of myself at the time, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I have a picture.
I was pretty, but anyway, so we did that, and then they did, we actually, because we had no CGI, obviously, it was all miniature models, and the bus and the mountains and everything,
the hell breaking away.
We're all in a room about this big, and the models were about this large, so yeah, it was fabulous. It was amazing.
And Heather would scream. I remember when we first moved into the house in the show, Heather has this line like, oh, this is straight out of Nightmare on Elm Street, you know. So,
Love it.
yeah, and then JR would pull pranks on us and have Freddy's blood or like his arm would fall off, and we were like, yeah, whatever, you know, for Heather and me and Brooke, you know, to be nonplussed by him.
So fun.
Was that a sheer coincidence that you all ended up?
Sheer coincidence, yeah.
How do you feel about that now, looking back on all that?
Well, I think that Brookie must have gotten hers after, what year did you shoot that? 88, yeah. We had all got cast in 87, so Brooke actually got her part after we started just the 10 of us. And then it was just kind of funny. People would show up at the audience taping with nightmare stuff.
Well, did you ever say like, oh, geez, I was in that movie too, or did you bond over it?
Well, I made fun of it in the documentary because, I was girl on the bus number 2. I clearly couldn't pull off girl on the bus number 1. Right. Like I really wanted that part, but the one line that she had, I tried. And clearly, she was...
You had a great opponent, though. I mean, she was a killer.
Oh, Alice
wouldn't give up her lines, right?
No, she would not. She would not.
Because you count your words, like when you're on that. It's like, guys, don't cut my 7 words.
Yeah, no. So...
I'm actually going to you got to do like a syllable for yeah, that would be awesome.
Catching one of the evil bastards. I think it's the evil bastard.
Sure, yeah. Remember, this is the next yeah, I was posting a bunch of stuff. I was at the flea market. I'm like, perfect.
I would love to have one. I don't actually.
Over the little bit harder.
Things are really going to heat up. I think Freddy says to him, I love it. I'm going to use that.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Things are really going to heat up.
Sometimes it's a little too sharp.